Hello and welcome to Run Testers. My name's Nick and this is our full review of the Nike InfinityRN 4. So the InfinityRN 4 or InfinityRN 4 is the first major update to the Infinity line since it launched a few years back. We've got an entirely new midsole here which really changes the feel of the shoe. It costs £155 in the UK, $160 in the US. The weight has jumped quite a bit. It's now 346 grams or 12.2 ounces in my UK size 9, which is a US 10. This model has got a bit heavier with each generation actually, and the previous version of the shoe was 310 grams in the same size. You've got a 9mm drop with a stack height of 39mm at the heel and 30 at the forefoot. So you've still got a Flyknit upper, but it's a bit different now with loads of little padding and overlay sections here. You've got a lot of padding around the tongue and collar of the shoe, but you've lost the big plastic heel clip that was on the Infinity in previous versions. There is still a little heel counter, but actually it's quite flexible around the back of the shoe these days. Nike says there's also a bit more room in the toe box because the shoe in general has a much wider platform, especially in the midfoot, than previous versions of the shoe to try and make it stable despite the lack of that plastic heel clip. The all-new midsole is Nike ReactX instead of the React foam we've seen in past models of the shoe. This is a new material that has a lower carbon footprint. It's also much softer, a bit bouncier. Nike say the energy return has improved. It's also a little bit heavier, hence the weight gain of the shoe. And you've still got a rocker design as well to try and create a nice smooth ride. You've now got a full outsole on the shoe with a waffle tread as opposed to the blotchy pattern we had on previous versions of the shoe. So hopefully that will result in a slight increase in grip and durability, although the Infinity was always known for being a very durable shoe in a way.
So I'll start with the fit of the Nike InfinityRN 4. I tested these in a UK 5, US 7.5, my normal size in Nike shoes. I found they're true to size, but the Flyknit upper is a lot kind of tighter than I would say compared to previous versions of the shoe. It is quite snug. It's kind of moving away from like the booty upper where it almost feels like a sock, and it is definitely like a thick kind of trainer upper, but it is quite tight around the foot. So for that, I don't know if I'd be tempted to go up half a size. If you're kind of between sizes, I'd say the fit is quite snug here compared to older versions of the shoe and compared to like the Invincible and the Peg, definitely. The toe box is quite roomy. That said, I didn't have any issues with this shoe feeling too small, but this is a 5, and I'd say all of my Nike shoes are a 5, but they're a US 7.5, and I think in other brands a UK 5 is UK 7, so I've probably gone up half a size here anyway. So I didn't notice they were too small, but I would say it is a snugger fit.
Case fit for me in the InfinityRN 4, pretty good. Overall, I had mine in a UK size 8, and I know that Nike suggests potentially going half a size up in this shoe. I wouldn't say, based on my testing, that has been something that I felt I needed to do. I was pretty happy with the amount of space you get up front of the toes. Quite a fair amount of material up front here in the toe box. I do find that maybe it does, and I think this is down to the kind of new upper that Nike uses here, kind of sucks you in at the midfoot, which I quite like, and it works well for me in terms of my kind of more narrow, skinny feet. In terms of what you're getting here with this kind of partially gusted tongue, sat securely, didn't move around. You don't have to work too hard to get a nice lockdown, I don't think, either with the laces. Good amount of padding here around the kind of heel collar as well too, which you'd want if it's a shoe that's kind of designed for kind of comfortable kind of daily training miles. So that point of view, all pretty solid, no kind of heel slippage or anything like that either too. So yeah, for me, based on my testing, I would go true to size. As I said, Nike does suggest going half a size up, but for me, my UK size 8, it was absolutely fine.
So on the fit of the shoe, you've got a fairly snug Flyknit upper here. Nike recommends going half a size up. I didn't do that, and I'm glad I didn't. I've still got quite a lot of room around the toes. I do have quite a narrow foot though, so if you are someone with a wide foot who is generally at the larger end of their size, it probably would be worth going a half size up. But if you're someone like me who has a narrow foot and is generally on the smaller end of your size, I think you'd probably be okay sticking to your normal size with the shoe. I haven't really had any major problems with the fit. It's a bit sloppy through the midfoot at times. The lockdown isn't great there, and sometimes I did notice that my foot was moving around a little bit when running a little bit faster or taking a corner, something like that. But overall, I would say stick to your normal size or go half a size up if you've got a wide foot or quite big for your size.
Okay, so into that run test. Now, what I would say is my experience of the last couple of InfinityRN shoes that I've not absolutely loved them. It's been down to the same issue, and that's been the kind of discomfort I found at the arch of the shoe, and it ultimately just made it very difficult to want to run or do the usual amount of running time I would do in those shoes. Now, I'm happy to say that's definitely changed on this shoe and this iteration. You know, that feeling is still, it's not entirely disappeared, but it's definitely less prominent. It hasn't been uncomfortable to run in. I've definitely found it a lot more enjoyable to run in from that point of view. So from a fit point of view, that, and, you know, comfort point of view, that's been a really big positive for me. I think also the upper changes. I found the upper on the last shoe, I don't know, it didn't feel like a running shoe upper, or a very good running shoe upper to me personally. And I feel with what Nike has done with this one is it's made it more structured, more supportive. It does hug, and it gives you a snug kind of fit around all of your foot as well. So I think that is a positive for me, and it just makes it generally more comfortable and just more of a running shoe to me than the kind of previous shoes. Now, what I would say in terms of, you know, the big thing here is the midsole change and what Nike has done here. So it's the ReactX foam. They haven't put this in a shoe before. This is different to what we're getting in the React. Now, in terms of how that ReactX midsole feels and what that gives you in the shoe, it's not the most exciting. It's not ZoomX kind of liveliness. You're not getting that extreme bounce in it, but also I don't think it's necessarily that bad. I mean, you know, I would say it is a little bit flat, and that probably sounds a little bit on the negative side, but actually I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing for me. You know, I found that it's still a pretty smooth ride in general. I think it's pretty stable. It is a heavier shoe, but it's not a heaviness that I found that I thought I would feel out when I've been running in it. I've actually done some relatively nippy kind of 5k, not my quickest 5k pace, but actually kind of 7-minute, kind of 30-minute mile pace, and it absolutely felt fine. I didn't find it a heavy and cumbersome shoe to run in from that point of view. So while it isn't the most exciting ride, I don't think it's necessarily a bad ride. You know, I found it pretty comfortable. I've definitely found it a lot nicer to run in than the previous InfinityRN shoes in general. And I have to say, probably going against the grain of what the other guys have said about the shoe, but I've actually kind of quite liked running in this shoe, which is not something I thought I would say. And as I said, it's not the most exciting ride, but I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I think it just feels pretty solid, very smooth in terms of those transitions, pretty stable, which I think is a good thing. You've got that kind of wide base as well. So that point of view, it's worked pretty well for me, and I think it feels like a shoe that you can soak up a lot of time in, and I think that's ultimately what it's designed for. I don't think it's massively versatile. I don't think, you know, you're going to do speed work in it, but actually whenever I have picked up the pace a little bit in it, done some more steady kind of work with it, kind of more tempo work, for me it's worked fine. I said I haven't felt the heaviness of this shoe. Outsole wise, I mean, it's been pretty solid overall. I've done some actually a little bit of lighter trail work, and it's been fine. I haven't had any issues that point of view. I feel like the durability side of things, it's going to be pretty solid overall. And yeah, I think generally, as I said, I didn't think this would be a shoe that I'd really like, you know, particularly out of the other Nike kind of training shoes. But actually, this is probably the one that I've, you know, enjoyed the most. And as I said, probably not what everyone else has probably felt about this shoe, but it's a shoe that I felt, you know, actually I'm going to put this back on, and I'm not, you know, that's not an issue for me, or I'm not put off about putting this back on and running, putting some running time in it. So yeah, pretty solid overall for me. As I said, I didn't absolutely love the previous InfinityRNs. I've definitely enjoyed this a little bit more. As I say, a bit of a surprise to me, and it's probably the nicer training shoe, a Nike training shoe that I've used this year, which, as I said, I wasn't expecting I would be saying when I put this shoe on, especially after my experience with the previous two shoes, which I didn't absolutely love.
So the run test, I still don't know what to make of this shoe. I must be honest, I didn't overly love it. My favourite version of this shoe, I think I said it in the first look, was the first ever Infinity, the kind of white. It was a white and pink. They released it years ago. I absolutely loved that shoe. It was like a go-to long run shoe for me because it was kind of stable, firm. We all know I love a really plush cushioned shoe, but you shouldn't do all your running in them. And I found it so versatile. I got so much out of that shoe. Since then, I've not loved it as much. And this is probably the version I've loved the least. And I'm sorry saying that. I think, so it's the ZoomX midsole foam, which Nike have said has more energy return. It says energy return is increased by 13%, but I'm not convinced. It definitely feels a lot plusher when you kind of put your foot in the shoe, but I'd say compared to the old version and previous versions before that, it doesn't feel as responsive and snappy underfoot. It's still definitely a kind of stable, firm ride if you compare it to like the ZoomX foam and the Invincible. it's definitely firmer underfoot. But I think, to be honest, it's a lot of money, and I think I would save, if you're looking for this kind of shoe, I'd save money and I'd either get the Infinity 3 if you kind of want that slightly more supportive, you know, it's got a lot of kind of, we've lost that big plastic rail around the outside, but it's still keeping your foot firm in the shoe. Or I'd get a peg. Do you mean it's that kind of shoe? I wouldn't really wear it for faster stuff because it feels quite heavy, and I wouldn't, you know, I would wear it for my easy runs, but I think there are other shoes out there that I'd probably reach for before I reach for this for my easy runs. So yeah, slightly squishier. I'm not that sure about the feel of it underfoot. I have tried to use it for kind of quicker tempo stuff. I'm not doing an awful lot of tempo, still recovering from a few niggles, so I'm not doing an awful lot of tempo, but I have tried to pick up the pace in it, and it just hasn't been the best shoe for that.
So it's not been the happiest run test for me with the Nike InfinityRN 4. It's not a shoe that's really impressed me. I'd say overall the updates Nike has made here just don't really work for me in general, and I do think overall it's a slightly worse shoe than previous models essentially, and one that is going to struggle to stand out in the cushion shoe market. The new foam is certainly softer and it is a little bouncier, but the main thing is it's softer. You get a lot of sink in and it's quite a squidgy, stodgy foam, and I don't think you get enough bounce back to really create a lively or enjoyable ride. Because of the way you sink into this soft foam, you lose the rocker on the shoe. I don't really get that smooth transition onto the toes that I did have with previous models with the firmer React foam. And in general, just the transition is very slow and sluggish. You get lost in the foam. There's not enough bounce at the end of it. So just feels a little bit like you're wading through a slightly soft material, and it just didn't feel great for me really at any pace. So for kind of shorter, easy runs, kind of 5k towards 5 miles maybe, it felt okay. Not my favourite shoe, but it was kind of okay. Lots of shoes are for that kind of distance, but as I pushed to longer distances, it did feel like I was losing a bit of energy, getting sapped out of me by the stodgy midsole foam and design of the shoe. So it does protect the legs. I'm sure like you're going to get a lot of cushioning and protection there, and that's quite nice maybe if you're newer to the sport or just looking for a shoe to use for general use, the odd run here and there, but aren't so fussed about running long. But if you are looking for a cushion shoe to use for those longer runs, this wouldn't be near the top of my list. It just felt very sluggish to me on any kind of distances. Needs to say, I did one faster run in an interval session on the treadmill, and it's not great for that. Like, that's not really what the shoe's built for, to be fair. None of the Infinity line shoes have been built for that, but with previous models of the shoe, the firmer midsole foam and the rocker that really was present on the InfinityRN 1, 2, and 3 did mean it was kind of okay for upping the pace occasionally, and generally just had a much smoother, better ride, I'd say. I'd also say that I preferred the upper on the older shoe. I found this one just a bit sloppy in the midfoot at times, and it just didn't make me feel that secure and comfortable. Like the old Infinity, one of the big things about it was a stable shoe. It worked well for lots of runners because of that, and I think you've lost the stability here, you've lost some of the rocker, you've added weight. All in all, just not really what I want to see from the new Infinity. So my verdict, this is another shoe in Nike's cushion range that I feel really hasn't had a very good update this year. I do think the Invincible got a fair bit worse this year. The Pegasus didn't really get much better. The Vomero is a good shoe, but the Infinity, I think, is probably my least favourite of all of them now. It's just got a stodgy ride that's just not fun to use for really any kind of run, and certainly runs where you're moving past short distances. It's just, it feels like it's sapping you a bit. It doesn't really give you much back. The foot gets lost in that foam, and the transition is just very sluggish. So it's a shame because React foam started out so positively with the old Epic React, a shoe I really loved. That really was quite lively and lightweight, and really was very versatile. I remember doing like half marathon races in that shoe. I was also using it for easy plods and things like that. And the Infinity line was a good shoe. It was a shoe I used to like reaching for in the dog days of marathon training when my legs were very tired, because it was stable, it was smooth, it was a firmer platform, and sometimes at that point of training I didn't want soft foams, and it had a use. Like, it wasn't necessarily the most lively or exciting shoe out there, but it had a use and it did its job well. The InfinityRN 4, I think, loses that use, and I don't think it really adds a different use. It's a shoe that I feel just has very limited appeal for runners in general. The one use it might have is that it is a pretty good looking shoe. It's got that crossover appeal where you can use it for the odd casual run whilst having a fairly nice looking shoe in general. But if you're looking for a cushion shoe to eat up some miles, there's lots of better options within Nike's range and without. So in Nike's range, the Vomero is my favourite of its purely cushion shoes for easy and long runs. And actually, I think the Pegasus 40 is a better all-round shoe than the Infinity 2. It's still very comfortable. It's a fair bit cheaper. Feels much better at any pace and is a lot more versatile. If you're looking at the big boys, the really cushion stuff, then the Invincible, I haven't been a huge fan of the Invincible 3, but it is a shoe that still has a livelier ride than the Infinity. It's a shoe I think that will still appeal to some people because of the soft, bouncy ZoomX foam, whereas I can't really say the same about this ReactX foam, which doesn't have that bounce. It's soft, but not in the same way as ZoomX. It doesn't give you much back, much rebound. And if you're looking at the market on large, you can really take your pick out of so many excellent cushion shoes. I think would be a better pick than the Infinity 4. There's the ReactX Gel Nimbus 25 and the Saucony Triumph 21 are really good, very highly cushioned shoes that have a better ride feel at any kind of pace recently. There's the Puma Magnified Nitro 2 I've just started testing and I'm enjoying that more than the Infinity, and you can actually go right down in price to things like the Puma Velocity Nitro 2 and get a better cushion shoe, I'd say. Even if it's not a max cushion shoe like this, it still does protect the legs well enough, I think, whilst having just a more enjoyable ride all round. So this update is a miss for me. I don't really know where we go from here with the Infinity line, if it's going to go much more into this crossover territory and be much more of a lifestyle focused shoe, but it's a shame because I think the previous model, like I said, wasn't the most exciting shoe in the market, but it was stable. It did have a nice smooth ride. It lasted forever. It had its uses, and I would struggle to recommend this shoe to anyone who really liked that shoe.
So my verdict, I preferred the fit and the feel of the Infinity 3, Infinity Run 3, Infinity 3. And I think if I were, unless you're really, really keen, I mean, I love the look of this shoe. I think it looks really cool, and I'll definitely be wearing it casually or in the gym. So unless you're really set on the Infinity 4, if you're a huge fan of the line you always have, this is still the same kind of firm, stable ride that you're going to get with the Infinity line. But I think if you're looking for a newer shoe, I'd probably save my money and get the 3, just because I don't think this shoe is as responsive underfoot, and I think this slightly softer ZoomX foam has meant it's lost a bit of that responsiveness. Fans of the shoe will like this iteration. For me, I didn't love it, but we'll see what the other run testers have to say. For me, I prefer a softer everyday running shoe, and I think if I'm going to run in something a little bit firmer and a little bit more stable, I really want it to be a little bit more responsive so I can use it for tempo sessions and faster stuff.
Okay, so verdict on the Nike InfinityRN 4, and yeah, I'm probably going to be the only one that says this, but out of the Nike training or daily training shoes that I've used this year, this is probably the one that I've liked the most. Now I would say, look at something like Nike Pegasus 40, it's probably a little bit lighter. It is, that is supposed to be a kind of daily trainer, kind of with a kind of speedier edge to it. I didn't absolutely love that shoe, and it's not a shoe that I picked up on, regularly after testing that I've wanted to go out and do a lot of time in. Obviously the Nike Invincible 3, it's got ZoomX foam. It's definitely a nicer, kind of more enjoyable, bouncy kind of ride. But I also didn't absolutely love the fit on that shoe. I know some people absolutely love that shoe and be absolutely fine with it. For me, I've surprisingly enjoyed running a little bit more in this shoe, and when I've put it on and I've expected to have a bad run in it, I haven't. And that's, I don't think that's necessarily all of the changes that Nike has made here, but I think from a comfort point of view, I think it's been very solid. I felt I can go and run, a little bit longer in this, and it feels very consistent in terms of running it in this shoe as well. And I think sometimes that's just what you want from a shoe when you just want to soak up a lot of time on your feet, and I feel like it is a shoe that can do that. Is it the most lively, exciting Nike shoe? No, but does that necessarily mean it's a bad shoe? I don't think so. As I said, in my runs, I've had a pretty good time with it. Now, if you look at the other shoes that kind of sit in this kind of category outside of Nike shoes, so we're looking at things like the ReactX Gel Nimbus 25. Does remind me a lot of the Hoka Clifton, I think, in the same way that that's not got the most exciting ride, but you feel like you can put in a lot of time in that shoe. And if that's a shoe that you want, where you're just gonna, you want to cover a lot of mileage at your kind of weekly mileage, and I think these are shoes that can do that. As I said, the Invincible 3 has definitely got a more lively, more enjoyable ride, and if that's something that you want from your kind of daily trainer kind of shoe or easy run shoe, then that's a shoe that I'd probably suggest going for. But yeah, I've actually kind of enjoyed it, which I know that's not been the consensus across the team that have tested this shoe, but I think it's been pretty good for me. As I said, I haven't used the Pegasus that much after testing it. The Nike Invincible 3, the same thing as well. And I feel like if I wanted to go out and do some just kind of easy runs, maybe you want to do slightly steadier pace runs as well, this is a shoe that I would have no problem doing it in. Is the ReactX midsole foam kind of groundbreaking? No, but I do think in terms of the package of what you're getting here, and I said something that you can spend a lot of time in, it feels like it can hold up over kind of a decent amount of mileage as well, and you're getting good durability as well too. I think this is a pretty solid shoe, and it's not, as I said, it's not something I thought I would say about the InfinityRN 4 based on my previous experience, but I've actually quite liked this shoe. And yeah, as I say, probably my favourite kind of daily trainer Nike shoe that I've tested, probably just behind the Nike Invincible 3. I said, didn't absolutely love the Pegasus 40, and I know there's other shoes in that kind of daily training category, Nike shoes that I haven't tested, but in terms of what I have tested, this is probably the one that I feel like I would actually grab for regularly and spend some extended time in it.
So that's our review of the Nike Infinity 4. Let us know what you think in the comments below. If you actually really like the shoe, that'd be great to hear from you. Please do like, subscribe, ring the little bell, and we'll see you next time.